What's good, people? Uh-oh. Got this microphone. I decided to try something different tonight. Just riding solo. Good evening out there. Hope everybody doing good this evening. Um, I, I'm just blessed to be here and hope you doing the same. But it's a lot going on in the world. It's a lot going on in life. And I was sitting here in my studio and I was trying to figure out, where do I start tonight? What do I need to talk about? And I was just God spoke to me about, trusting his plan and and instead of ours, because a lot of times really that's what we run into the problem with. Oftentimes we are trusting our plans and the things that we do and the things that we want to do versus what God have in store for us. So a lot of times that really be what the big issue is. A lot of times is that we oftentimes want to do everything our way, and sometimes when we do things and we have plans and preparations for certain things, it will work out sometimes. But, sometimes we might have good ideas and good things in play, and it may not necessarily be what God have in store for us. So a lot of times we have a battle mentally because we focus too much on, hey, um, we want it our way instead of what God have planned for us. So, nevertheless, that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. Trusting our ways versus God's ways. I talked about this another time. The scripture says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he shall direct your path. What you have to realize is this: you might have good plans for yourself or however you think about it. But just because you got good ideas and you got a good plan for yourself, it does not mean that that's what God had in store for you. Because you know what I've come to learn in life? The path that God have for us, if you really just want to be honest about it, it's really a path you don't want to go down. Because some of the things that's in store for us, some of the things that's in store for us in life, it take you down a road that you would have said, no, I ain't doing this. It take you down a road where you be like, no, I ain't going this way. That ain't what I want. We lose loved ones. We lose people dear to our heart. We lose jobs. We lose opportunities that we feel like, man, that would have been good for me had I done that. But that wasn't God's plan for you. And oftentimes we run around and we upset because we really upset with God. Because God don't work according to our terms. God is not doing it in a way that we agree with. So a lot of times we have an issue with God, but we don't really say it, but that's what the truth really is. You upset because God wouldn't do it your way. That new car you wanted, that new house, that job, that husband, that wife. You know, God don't do things according to what you think. So we run around upset and we be thinking a lot of times that, oh, it is the devil getting busy. But see, this is the thing that I've learned. One thing I learned about studying the scriptures, the devil it's really backwards. People really got it backwards. The devil really tries his best to give you whatever it is you want. You want to know why? Because the devil know that if he give you what you want, you won't acknowledge God. You won't follow God. You won't even mention him. Why? Because you'll be so caught up in the blessings and in the things that you desire that you won't even mention God. You'll be so caught up in the things that you want. And even the scripture says that Satan walked to and fro, seeking whom he may devour. When somebody is seeking to destroy you, they figure out what it is you like to get to you. Look, most of the time even when you saw it in movies and stuff, when you was trying to take down an enemy, what did you do? Anytime you trying to take out somebody, you send what they want. You send what they like. And most of the time, even in the movies and stuff, look at Samson. We ain't got to look at the movies. Let's go to scripture. Let's look at Samson. Samson in the Bible, you know, God made Samson as a mighty man, a fighter. No one could destroy Samson. So Samson would destroy the Philistines, right? So the Philistines and Samson, you know, he wasn't supposed to be dealing with them, but he messed around. To make a long story short, he messed around and fell in love with a Philistine girl, right? And Samson knew that he wasn't supposed to be dealing with him. So when the Philistines found out about this, they went to the girl secretly. Her name was Delilah. They went to her secretly and paid her and said, look, we need you to figure out what his weakness is so we can kill him. We gonna pay you to figure out what his weakness is. So, to make a long story short, they had no other way to destroy him. So Delilah said one day to Samson, look, you don't love me because you have told me you won't tell me where your strength lie, and you have lied to me 3 times. And the scripture says that when Delilah said this to Samson, it vexed his heart. And so finally Samson told her, he said, look, there hasn't been a razor that come on my head. If my hair was to be cut off, I would be weak like any other man. And the scripture says that Samson told her this with all his heart. So when Samson fell asleep in Delilah's lap, and she cut his hair off while he was asleep. And she began to afflict Samson, and she noticed that that the power of God had left him. So she called to the Philistines and said, y'all come one more time, because now I got him. Now I got him. And they came and they took Samson. They plucked his eyes out and made mockery of him. What am I trying to say? A lot of times we get caught up in the things that we like and the things that feel good to us, not knowing that it is a trap from the enemy. And mentally and spiritually, once the trap is up on us, we lose mental and spiritual eyesight. You know what I mean? We get so caught up in what we want and what we desire that we lose sight on what's right. We lose sight on what's right. So, little did they know that Samson began to pray to God. And little by little, Samson's hair began to grow back, even though Samson was blind. And in a long story short, Samson got a little boy to bring him to the pillars of the city. And he called upon God and said, fill me this one last time and let me die with him. And the scripture says that when he pushed those pillars out the way, that he killed more men that day than he had his whole life. So what I'm saying to you is this: it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Sometimes it's good in the beginning, and then you start experiencing things in your life. You start experiencing things in your life. And when you start experiencing those things in your life, it take you for a turn. So what I'm saying to you is this: it ain't gonna go your way in the beginning, no matter what it is you choose. You can choose to be in a relationship. You can choose to be in business. You can make your mind up to live for God, to serve God. Everything that you look, a lot of times the reason why you starting something good or new is because you have good thoughts. In the beginning, you always have positive thoughts. You always have good thoughts when you're doing something in the beginning. Just like, prime example, when people get married, they sit there. When people get married, they sit there and they tell their vows and they say, for better or for worse, rich or poor, sickness and health. They say all that stuff. But you know what? They happy when they saying that. They're happy when they're saying that. They don't actually think at that moment that it's going to get worse. They just agree to it in the beginning because they're happy at the moment. And what am I trying to say? Most of the time in a relationship, especially when you done got married, it seems like right after you make that commitment, that's when things start happening. And then next thing you know, you ready to quit. You ready to divorce. You ready to throw in the towel. And what am I trying to say? A lot of times that's how our life is. A lot of times that's how our life is. Like, we got it all planned out good. We thinking good about it. We making a step for the positivity, and we saying to ourselves, okay, yeah, this gonna work out. And a lot of times, it go completely different from what you planned. And we get to points in our life to where we want to give up sometimes, but you have to hang in there because the scripture says that the race is not given to the swift nor the strong, but to those that endure to the end. When you swift, you smooth. When you strong, yeah, you know you strong. But just because you swift and strong, you're not gonna win that way. It take going through something. Endurance means that you have to go through something and you can't avoid it. Look, a lot of stuff that we go through, really, it's at a point to where we're learning something that we didn't once know. We're learning something that we didn't once know. And it took you to go through that. And let me tell you something else. You have to be careful what you say. Because a lot of us say we love God and we trust God. But then when we start going through things that are not going our way, we don't feel the same about God like we said at first. When things are not going our way, or we love God, or we trust Him until things don't go our way. Then we wonder, why does this happen? I'm trusting in you. I'm hanging in there. Listen, when you trusting in God, you can't trust in God for something from Him. You see what I'm saying? That's the reason why. That's the reason why in the beginning there were thousands. There was a multitude in the beginning. Then it came down to 12 disciples. Because some people were only following God because of what they wanted. The multitude in the beginning were following Jesus Christ because they were only focused on what they wanted. When it means you have to do something for God, when it means you got to give up your way for His, will you still trust Him? Will you still believe? When it means that things are not going according to what you thought they would be, would you still trust Him? Would you still believe? Because, see, that's what God want to get out of us. That's what God wants to get out of us. And one of the reasons why I'm talking about this subject, because I see so many things happening. Businesses are closing. People started off good, especially with this business stuff. A lot of people started off good, and now they're in the rough stages and having to close their doors. And a lot of people feel like, man, it hurts because it's not going according to what you thought. But you have to remember, God is in control and God have the plan. Even though we go through things and we feel like, man, why is this happening? Even though it may seem bad, trust me, God knows exactly what needs to happen and why it needs to happen. You just don't know, and you just don't understand because you're looking at it from a perspective of what you are looking at. So you gotta hang in there, even though the days might look dark, even though you may have lost loved ones, even though you may have lost everything. Because, this is the thing. sometimes when you lose it all, it's not always a bad thing. You want to know why? Because sometimes the things you built weren't on a solid foundation. So sometimes God have to break you down to nothing so that you can rebuild correctly. Sometimes we start building our stuff and we building it the wrong way. And yeah, you get up there, but it's not stable. And you gonna come crashing down. So sometimes God have to break you down to nothing to stabilize you so you can build on the right thing. And when you building on the right thing, it takes time. In the beginning, you're not going to get a lot of help. You're not going to get a lot of support. There are going to be a lot of people that don't understand you, but yet and still you have to maintain and go on anyway because God have a divine purpose for your life, and you got to realize that. You got to realize that even though God have a divine purpose for my life, you know, everything that's happening was supposed to happen. It's just you feel like it wasn't supposed to happen because you lean into your own understanding. But God know why it was supposed to happen and why it needs to happen. And you just gotta hang in there and be encouraged to know that it's gonna work out. Because remember this, even though you hurt and you going through things and you don't understand, it wasn't supposed to go your way anyway. It always was God's way. And the reason why it's important to let God do it and acknowledge him and he shall direct your path is because until you do that, you're never going to be operating in your purpose. You'll never be operating in your purpose if you don't allow God to direct your life. You'll never be operating in your purpose. And God's way is going to work. And then later on, you'll look back and you'll be like, man, I'm glad that happened because I don't know what I'd have did had I done it my way. You know, your way is going to come to an end, but God's way is everlasting. And we got to learn to get with his program instead of ours. Because, you know, like I said, the race not given to the swift nor the strong, but to those that endure until the end. And when you endure something, that means you going through something. You got to deal with something. And let me tell you this. Don't be so deceived about what you go through and what you see others doing. Because I'm going to tell you something. A lot of people are really hurting and a lot of people are really going through. They just not showing it and they not talking about it. So it make you think you the only one that's dealing with something. But that's not true. We all going through things. We all dealing with things. And it ain't just you by yourself. But you got to remember to hang in there and trust God. Because God is going to lead the way for you. And God is going to make up that difference in your life. So, like I said, it's not our plans, but it's God's plan. You know, and we don't want God's plan a lot of times because God's plan is full of endurance, meaning that there are things you have to go through. It's full of endurance. And we don't want to go through nothing. We don't want to go through nothing with people. But you have to if you really want to get into your purpose that God has for your life. So That's really what I wanted to say tonight. There's some other subjects that I want to talk about, but I just want to stay in that lane with it, to just continue to trust God and and continue to hang in there and remember that you have to go through. You cannot avoid it, and you're going to go through things that you would have said no to. Like, who want to lose a loved one? Who want to lose everything? Who want to lose a good job? Who want to go broke? Their bank account in the negative. Who want to go in business and then have to close their doors? Nobody wants to go through that. But sometimes that's a part of, well, all the time, that's a part of our life, especially when we're dealing with God's purpose for our life. It comes with surprises and things that we didn't originally think of, but that's the point. You're supposed to trust in God. And are you going to trust in Him when you're going through? Or do you just trust God when it's good? Are you going to trust in Him when you're going through? Or is it just about the good things with you? So we got to remember to trust in God and lean not to our own understanding, but in all our ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path. I know my video was short tonight, but that's what I wanted to say. I don't really have scripts when I do my podcast. I don't really have scripts. That which is from the heart reaches the heart. I just go off what God give me, what's in my heart to say. There are certain subjects that I talk about, but sometimes I try to get to a point where I can, sometimes it's just better to debate or have somebody to dialogue with because, some things I be wanting opinions on. So, but trust me, y'all, hey, listen, I want y'all to, hey, I want you to be in tune, please. If you haven't, I know some of y'all my friends, but you're not actually following me. Even if you're my friend, go to my profile and make sure that you're following me because I want to get my follows up. I got some big things in store. There's some big things that's coming, and I'm trusting God to do it. And I'm just encouraging. You got to do like David did. When you're going through something and it just seems like all is lost, sometimes you just got to encourage yourself. You got to keep the faith and encourage yourself. The scripture says faith without works is dead. You got to keep the faith and encourage yourself. One thing I know, God didn't bless me to be able to do all of this just to fail. This is only the beginning and greatness is coming. And you got to tell yourself the same thing when you're going through something, that greatness is coming. This is a part of it. You got to go through. You have to endure it. But there's going to be something good in the end if you hang in there. God bless you all.